Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, all of that. Um, Today's video is not your typical news comes out and we follow the pullback to that and try and get in on that trade. Today, what I'm going to show you guys is basically how you read the price on any given time frame. How to read the price. Okay. Uh, took I took this trade and I closed it in a little bit of profit because uh, I got a little confused because it's a counter trend trade, um, and not the typical as we always do. News comes out and blah 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 stuff like that. No, it's not that trade. But the trade is coming from a logic. It's not an illogical trade, and so basically, what I'm going to focus on briefly. Not gonna go into a lot of detail of all of this stuff, but just show you guys how what everyone talks about, market structure and um, fair value gaps and trap area and supply and demand, support equal resistance, breakout, and all of those terms. I completely agree with them. It's I think easier to give something a term instead of just going into the logic of it and trying to understand what actually is happening. So I'm going to show you guys how I read this trade. Although this is not the best of the dollar buys, there is actually another dollar buy that I was looking at, but um, the pullback was very shallow on that, and I couldn't, just jump the gun on that. I did trade this, but did not make any money. I mean, a fraction of money off of it. I got a little spooked out by um, the last push from the seller down. Anyway, what I'm going to show you guys is again how to read the price, actually what the price is doing as it's printing the candles. What is the price actually doing? Okay, so let's take a look at this downtrend, right? Seller pulls back, still this seller pulls back, all of this seller's territory, his playground, pulls back, sells, makes a lower low. So it's a downtrend, right? Lower highs, lower lows are coming in. Okay, this buyer, it tries to go through this seller, couldn't go through this seller, and then liquidity grab, stop loss hunt, whatever you want to call it, happens, and the price goes lower low again, right? Focus on how I'm emphasizing on lower highs and lower lows here. Okay, keep that in mind and focus on it. So the seller sells, this seller sells, comes all the way down to there, pulls back. It's still this seller or this seller, doesn't really make a difference. Pulls back, sells, pulls back, sells, pulls back, sells, tries to make a lower low, pulls back, sells. If you go down to 15 minutes, you'd be able to see that all of this, as I've drawn it, right? Sell begins there, pull back, sells again, comes all the way down, pull back, hold, sells again, pulls back. All of this is one sell, all of this is one sell, all of this is one sell, all of this is one sell. Then you're still inside this seller while you're pulling back into here. And then let me just get rid of all these brushes. Okay. And still inside this seller until this point, sells, pulls back, sells, makes a lower low, buyer comes back, a higher high, right? At any point in time since we began from up there, this is the first time any seller along this way was taken out, right? You can go back in time and, look at the chart however you want to. This is the first time a higher high comes in, goes through the sell, right? But then it comes down, couldn't go lower low, pulls back, tries to go, couldn't go, pulls back, tries to go, couldn't go. Buyer comes in, holds, goes all the way up to there, right? Pull back. Pull back to this lower high, lower low sequence. If we consider this as the final sell that has happened, and this seller has to continue to sell, right? That is the point of a downtrend, that if this is the seller now, it has to continue to sell. Fails, fails, pulls back. Okay, you're still inside his playground, starts to sell, right? It starts to sell, goes through this buyer in the process of this higher high, higher low sequence, goes through this buyer that we also, there's a term known for it, a lopsided V formation. Some of you might know that, some of you might not know that, but this is a breakout, right? We go through the buyer that was buying in the process of this pullback to this seller. Again, we went through the buyer who was buying in the process of this higher high, higher low in the playground of this seller. Okay, gonna get rid of all of these brushes again. Okay, just mark it here. All right, so a new seller, probably this seller, in the process of this pullback is introduced into the markets. This happened yesterday during New York. New York Stock Exchange opened 30 minutes into it. This is what happened. Okay, seller comes back, goes through it, pulls back, goes through, makes a lower low. So the important piece now that I'm going to talk about is, if it is this seller selling, he started to sell up here, went lower low, pulled back, went lower low, came back, held, tried to go, couldn't go, pulled back, tried to go, couldn't go. All of this has started to range now. In the process of this downtrend, a pullback is coming in, the downtrend is beginning again, and it starts to range here. Okay, notice how in the process of whatever's happening right now, I am going to draw it again. In the process of whatever's happening right now, as this seller is probably back, putting in lower highs and lower lows, the last point of supply, the last bit of sell that happened during New York is in here, makes a lower low. If the downtrend is to continue, again, if the downtrend is to continue, the price should not go higher than this. It should continue. Okay, if it comes up in here, up in here, it should continue to sell from here because it has started to put in new supply zones, right? Number one, number two, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this seller sells, couldn't, puts in a lower low, puts in a lower high, couldn't go, pulls back, couldn't go, pulls back, couldn't go, as this starts to range during Asia today. During Asia today, buyer comes up, goes through this range, right? Again, let's clear all of these brushes and talk about it furthermore. Okay, this ranging activity during half the New York today, and then after the markets open during Asia, this buyer buys, comes up into here. If the downtrend that is coming from up there, and if it's this seller selling and this seller is coming back, the price should continue to go down from here. What happens instead? Goes higher, pulls back, holds, makes a higher high. Now, what I'm trying to show you guys is how to read the market, and the most important piece of it is who is in charge, at what time frame, who is playing in his playground, which in this case is clearly this buyer now. If this seller couldn't go any lower and we're through this, and a new buyer during Asia is introduced into the markets, I am reading it on initially 3 minutes, but 1 minute also. Okay, initially 3 minutes, but 1 minute also. So as the price, okay, so it's this piece during Asia that breaks out, pulls back, goes all the way up to there. There's a pullback. Now again, if it's that seller, if it's test number 2 for that seller, and this is for a better price and to turn people to the opposite side into the markets where people are starting to get in on the buy side and the sell should continue. This hold shouldn't have happened. This hold should have continued to go down. What happens instead? It tests, it buys. So it's this buyer in control now. And as it starts to pull back, look at how much time it takes to pull back into the same area where initially it just jumps down, jumps right back up, and then slows down, right? As it's slowing down, it's coming down, picks up pace. People are getting in on the sell side. Our beloved Kiddish also wanted to sell this, but I mean, sell the dollar. I mean, if you look at it from a higher time frame perspective, of course, but then the move is so fast and it has went so far, the sell move. Even if it is to sell, it's not going to continue to sell, right? It's going to pull back. It's going to fill in all those gaps that it has created along the way, and for a better price, discount, blah blah blah, liquidity stop, whatever you want to call it. That's what it's going to do, right? And you can clearly read the price as what the price is doing at this point in time. As it's pulling back, sells here all the way down to there, pulls back, sell, pull back, sell, pull back, sell, pull back, sell, higher high, as if this buyer is back. As it came higher high on the lower time frame, there's a precision entry in here. Even if I close all of these brushes, you'd be able to see. Okay, so there's a precision entry right in here. The last bit of sell that happened got wrong footed, and we tested this area. I entered in here, stop loss below the V formation. I was expecting it to continue to go higher from here. I'd gotten my stop loss to break even as it broke through, but because it was a counter trend trade, there was another push coming. That push did come. Uh, um, I got scared, I got spooked, I closed full position here, and then it turned around and it's still going. Um, the targets on this are probably up in here. It could go higher high also, and the reason why I'm saying that is because the best dollar buy was this. uh, it's much more clearer than dollar CAD, because this is a clear new buyer from in between all of this downtrend starts to come up. Even if you say that this is the last sell that happened, this buyer went through this, held, we had a little bit of a pullback and pretty good entries in here too, and this is continuing with an uptrend. So this could continue to go. If it breaks through this, then the targets are up there. If it has to turn around, it has to turn around from here. It's the same concept. It's the same concept as we just discussed while reading the 15-minute chart on dollar CAD. Because if this is a new seller that killed this buyer, it should turn around from here, if it is to turn around. But if all of this uptrend is going to continue, it's going to go through this, and then a pullback to this is going to be for a buy again. Anyway, cheers, guys.